Israel launched a wave of airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, saying it was hitting Hamas targets in its heaviest assault on the territory since a ceasefire took effect in January. It's killed more than 400 people and wounded hundreds more, according to Gaza's health ministry, which says over half of the dead are women and children. The Israeli attack could signal the full resumption of war. Hamas, which has yet to respond militarily, warned that Israel is breaching their ceasefire and jeopardizing the roughly 24 Israeli hostages who are believed to still be alive in Hamas captivity. A warning: some of the images in this story are graphic. Explosions were heard over Gaza City in the early hours today.
After 15 minutes, when that subsided somewhat, I could hear people yelling outside, screaming. I heard ambulance driving on and off. And the bombing has continued throughout the night, but with more space in between those explosions. We've seen reports of several dozen children killed.
Israel's military said it conducted strikes on Hamas targets in the Palestinian enclave, ending a weeks-long standoff over extending a ceasefire that had halted fighting in January.
The scenes are just horrific. Babies, children all over the floor, bleeding from their heads, bleeding from their abdomens, extremity injuries.
Ambulances were seen racing out of a hospital in Khan Yunis. At least 400 were injured and hundreds more wounded, according to the Gaza Health Ministry.
There was no prior warning. It all happened unexpectedly, and people were in their homes, not even outside.
Strikes were reported in multiple locations: Gaza City, Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. The Israeli military, which said it hit dozens of targets, said the strikes would continue for as long as necessary and would extend beyond airstrikes, raising the prospect that Israeli ground troops could resume fighting. In a social media thread, the Israeli PM's office saying it follows Hamas's repeated refusal to release our hostages, as well as its rejection of all the proposal it has received from the U.S. presidential envoy and from the mediators.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home. We will make it very clear to the Security Council that if they want to stop the war in Gaza, they have to ensure that the hostages are coming back to Israel. We are committed to bring them back.
Hamas issued a statement accusing Israel of breaching the ceasefire. The Palestinian militant group has spent weeks calling for serious talks on the ceasefire agreement's second phase. Both Israel and the United States blame the renewed hostilities on Hamas's refusal to release more hostages before negotiations on ending the war proceed, which was not part of the ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is backing Netanyahu's decision to unilaterally walk away from the ceasefire Trump took credit for brokering.
President Trump has made clear that Hamas must release the hostages immediately or pay a high price, and we support Israel in its next steps. Hamas must release the hostages it abducted more than 17 months ago.
Egypt, one of the mediators in the agreed-upon ceasefire deal, condemned Israel, called for restraint, and urged all parties to work towards a lasting agreement.
This will add tragedy onto the tragedy. The last 18 months of violence have made abundantly clear that there is no military path out of this crisis. The only way forward is a political settlement in line with international law.
Carrying their belongings on foot and moving on trucks, Palestinian families fled Rafah today, following Israeli evacuation orders. The World Health Organization says the Israeli strikes come as access to medical supplies is already strained in Gaza.
Essential treatment for non-communicable diseases like insulin, diabetes, high blood pressure medicines are running low. Additional, the trauma of strategic surgical supplies that's expected to run out soon. And now with what happened now with the airstrikes, etc., it's only put this into a much more serious environment.
Meanwhile, in Israel, relatives of hostages and supporters took to the streets to protest the renewal of military action in the Gaza Strip. They slammed the decision to attack the enclave again, saying it jeopardized their relatives.
Basically, I'm terrified for the life of my two little brothers. We know that through military pressure, a few, we can count them on the number, on the hands, on the fingers, how many hostages came back through military pressure. We need a ceasefire to release my brothers. They are still alive, and we need everything to bring them back.
I think that most Israelis woke up early in the morning today, and they had, just like myself, the same question mark, whether it is pure military action or military because of political issues. And this should not happen in a democracy.
אזרחי ישראל, במשך שבועות ארוכים,
But Netanyahu says now talks on restoring the Gaza ceasefire will continue only under fire.